Hello again. I hope you are making some progress in wrestling with the text of Aristotle. Aristotle is not easy reading. Nevertheless, with practice you can learn to read Aristotle, and your practice in learning to read Aristotle is a good practice for learning to read just about anything. After mastering Aristotle, nothing will be a challenge for you at all. Insurance contracts, whatever, you'll be able to read it all with ease. Okay, we looked at Aristotle's categories and at his concept of substance. You've also been reading in Aristotle's physics for this week here. Aristotle's physics. Physis is the Greek word for nature. So Aristotle's physics is his book on nature. And it's indeed on everything that is about everything. Nature for Aristotle is everything that is subject to change, to any kind of change. And so it's not surprising that a central portion of this is Aristotle's account of causality, and that's what we want to take a little closer look at today. Cause, the term for cause, the Greek word for cause is aiteia. This also means guilt or responsibility. It means guilt in a legal sense. So a cause is an aiteia. Why responsibility? Well, anything that's responsible, that contributes to the coming to be of something, that is a cause. So we'll see that Aristotle has a much more robust, a much fuller sense of causality than the way we conceive of cause and effect. The first thing to note about Aristotle's concept of causality is that it is tied to Aristotle's notion of the substance. When we think of causes and effects today, we think of events primarily, not of things. But Aristotle is thinking of things, of substances. When we're talking about a substance, something that comes into existence, what goes into explaining the existence of this thing and of what this thing is? Cause is meant to answer primarily for Aristotle what something is, and not the question how it happened. So try to remember that, keep that in mind when you read Aristotle's physics, and keep that in mind when you think about Aristotle's conception of causality. The whole idea of giving a causal explanation of things is to give an explanation of what something is, something that has come into existence, not an explanation of how something has happened. So Aristotle divides between four different types of causes. What he calls the material, the formal, the efficient, and the final. And the first two of those causes, the material and the formal, this corresponds directly to Aristotle's conception of substance. Because every substance, virtually every substance for Aristotle, we might have to make a little exception, but we won't worry about that right now. Every substance for Aristotle is something that is a composite of form and matter. It's something that has matter and it has form. So take a bronze sphere, for example. This is one of Aristotle's frequent examples of the bronze sphere. Here we have a material thing, this metal, this bronze metal, and we have a certain shape. Okay? It's a sphere. So it has matter and it has form. It has a shape, the spherical shape, and it has matter, the stuff that the sphere is made out of. Now notice that the sphere and the bronze, they really exist as a composite. They exist together. Right? You can't have a sphere. I mean, you could have a mental sphere. You could imagine a sphere in your mind. But you can't have an actual sphere, you can't have this actual form unless it's made out of something, unless it has some material that's formed into that shape of a sphere. So you don't get form without matter. Same thing the other way around, okay, so the bronze sphere wouldn't have to be a sphere. We could melt it down, we could crush it, we could make it into some other form. But whatever we do with it, you're never going to get bronze without any shape whatsoever. It's going to have some shape or other. It's always going to have some form. So form and matter, every substance is a composite of form and matter, and the material cause and the formal causes, the first two causes that are explanatory of why something exists and what it is. Let's take an example. Okay, suppose you have a house. Okay? Now a house has to have, we could have a dream house in our mind, but a dream house in our mind is not going to protect us from the rain and the snow and the cold. So to have an actual house, you have to have material. It has to be made out of something. You have to have bricks and mortar, lumber and nails, and so on. But now, if you order some building materials from the building supply store and they're brought out and they're dumped on your empty lot, you're still not ready to move in because it's not enough to have matter in order to have your house. It has to have a form too. Those materials, just like the bronze sphere is only a sphere if the bronze is formed into a spherical shape, your building materials constitute a house only when they're assembled together. They're put together in the form of a house. Okay? And so the form is, you could think of as the blueprints of the house. That defines the design, the way those materials are arranged in order to make a house. Now if you have your building materials and the architect comes by and drops off the blueprints, you're still not ready to move in. You also need some way to put the form into that matter and to combine those. Okay? The matter is not going to arrange itself into the house. So what you have here is what Aristotle calls the efficient cause. It's also sometimes called the moving cause. It's what puts the form into the matter. It's of Aristotle's four causes, the efficient cause is the closest to what we ordinarily mean nowadays when we talk about cause and effect. Notice it's not exactly the same. It's not just talking about how an event happens. It's talking specifically about how form gets put into matter. That's the efficient cause. And then the last cause is what Aristotle calls the final cause. And this is also a cause for the existence of the house because the house wouldn't exist if nobody wanted to live in houses. If we all preferred to live in trees or live in caves, there wouldn't be houses. We have to have a reason or a purpose for having a house. So there's a purpose for the house to exist as well. And for this reason, this is the so-called final cause. It's the purpose for the thing. So these are Aristotle's four causes: material, formal, efficient cause, and final cause.